I did not like The Brutalist. I did not like The Brutalist. I did not care for it. I was not a fan. I came out of the theater mad. I was unhappy. I felt like I had wasted my time. I felt like it was a huge effing nothing burger that led to nothing, and it was just layers upon layers of pretension. And this is coming from someone who has a degree in art history. Pretension is my middle name. I'm like the target audience for a 4-hour-long epic movie about a fake designer who didn't actually live, who escapes the Holocaust and comes to America. I'm so down for a movie filmed in VistaVision. I not only prefer movies that are on film, but I actually prefer black and white movies to color movies. That's how pretentious I am. That's how much of a hipster I am. Also, I knew that it was about the concept of the American dream. My family left Italy directly to escape fascism, really intense Italian fascism. They came to America specifically because of the economic promise that they would no longer be farmers and like manual laborers still living in like a peasantry feudal system in a way. So I was really down for it. I knew that it had won some award. It won the Silver Lion at Venice, which is for best directing. That blew my fucking mind. The Brutalist is a movie that I think fails exceptionally on several fronts, on almost every front, I would say. The direction of The Brutalist is exceptionally bad, and the fact that it won Best Direction at Venice is blackpilling to me in ways that are hard to describe, but I'm going to ultimately try my best to do so over the course of this video. First off, I didn't just go and see this movie. You gotta remember, I'm pretentious. I'm a hipster. I went to go see an IMAX special screening of this movie. I got a freaking poster. Let me get the poster really quick. So I haven't taken good care of this poster because I really disliked the movie. I put it behind the TV and it kind of fell over on itself and crumpled. I got a poster because I went to the IMAX special VistaVision screening, okay? I went in with my hipster goggles on, ready to just be like, wow, even if nobody else in the theater likes this movie, I understand it because I got the art historical references, I got the design references. The opening of the movie, I was hooked. I was floored. I was like, okay, damn, I see why this won the Silver Lion. When we start in that like cramped, claustrophobic, disorienting, like dark place, you're given such a limited vision. There's like this eerie narration that you're not sure what it's from. It becomes clear that it's from a letter right as he breaks out onto the deck of the ship and embraces his friend in this joyous moment, and the score swells and you're just caught up in like the wow. Oh my God. The camera panning up to have the Statue of Liberty enter inverted from the top of the frame upside down was so genius. I was so floored. I was like, wow, that's incredible. Nodding and like turning to my boyfriend and being like, that's really good. Next scene, I gotta be honest, I was kind of out. Not only am I like a pretentious hipster, I'm like an uber feminist pretentious hipster. My favorite thing in the world is fucking dunking on something and being like, actually, this is misogynistic. That's not like really the point here. There's a lot more stuff in this movie to dunk on in that regard, which I will do. This opening scene of being in a brothel, for me as a viewer, it really turned me off. This is a movie, and as per Laura Mulvey's visual pleasure and narrative cinema, which is the origin of the term male gaze, and I highly recommend everybody should read. It's very short. It is kind of dense with theory, but plato.stanford.edu is your best friend as far as figuring your way around stuff that you don't know if you're unfamiliar with anything. In Mulvey's essay, when she is bringing forward this concept of male gaze, she's talking about how narrative cinema as a visual medium that also contains a story and characters is wholly created by men. On the first level, the narrative level, women often only exist as tools or sexual objects or very one-dimensional kind of tropey, stereotypical characters, like a witch would be an example. That is created by the film director, who is also male, in addition to the presumed male protagonist. Meaning that the camera gaze is also embedding this male view of women. And then that's distributed to the final layer of the gaze, the male viewer, who, when he's intaking it, is also calling upon patriarchal and misogynistic conceptions of women. That triple layering is kind of what creates the male gaze and why women in movies are bad a lot of the time. It's bad depictions, it's misogynistic. It's not to say that women are bad, obviously that's the point of my critique. Women are not bad, and depicting them in this really misogynistic, objectifying, reductive gaze is very harmful. That really comes out in The Brutalist in this second scene of the brothel. You know, think about it. Think about the context of this movie. Think about the opening of this movie. It's established that Adrien Brody's character, who I don't remember the name of, what was it, Laszlo? I shouldn't be chewing on my nail, it's so low vibrational. Laszlo has come to America as a refugee who was affected by the Holocaust. Then he goes to a brothel. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think of post-war brothel, I don't think of women who made that choice of their own free will and had other ways to make money that would have made them the same amount of money. I think of women who were displaced by the Holocaust and by the war, in addition to the women who were already living in essentially sex servitude, sex slavery in a brothel system. This prostitute in this scene is depicted as like she's being very playful with Adrien Brody. They're having this like dialogue, and I'm not buying it. I'm like, this is so misogynistic. Nobody on this production has thought for 1 second about the realities of brothel prostitution in the post-war setting in which there's an influx of refugee women who are desperate to make money. The likelihood is that he'd be raping some poor woman who also survived from the camps. But nevertheless, in the narrative, it's depicted as this woman who like loves being a prostitute and loves having sex with Adrien Brody because he's such a prize, I guess. Which tells me that the filmmaker just does not see women as people on a kind of fundamental level, which is very disappointing and a very bad sign for the rest of the movie. And it's a very, very bad sign that this is the second scene of the whole movie, and it definitely put a bad taste in my mouth and set me up for negativity for the whole rest of the movie, which is very long. So yeah, what a viewing experience I had. There's this one scene where he's talking to his like niece or whatever, the girl who's mute, and he's like pointing to a picture of her like mother. He's like, she was so beautiful, try and be like her. And I was like, what the fuck? She survived being in a camp in the Holocaust. Try and be more beautiful? What the fuck are you saying? It's so stupid and misogynistic. I laughed in the theater. I was like, what? In the first part, he's working with his cousin who's like Americanized, which is a real thing that did happen. I was still halfway invested in the movie. All through the first part, I was excited about it. It wasn't exceptional. I guess it was fine, I should really say. There she goes, she's gone. That whole dance sequence was so like horrible. It didn't really contribute anything. It was an uncomfortable watch. I was like mad at how misogynistic it was. He was mad at his brother. It was so weird. The thing about writing, the thing about storytelling, I may have never made a movie, but I have written a lot. To create a strong character, you want to have them make decisions. You don't want to have things kind of passively happen to them. This is really true in movies because you kind of have a limited amount of time and space in which to characterize your character. This movie had an unlimited amount of time and space. That addendum doesn't even count. Have Laszlo actually cheat with his cousin's wife or whatever. Have Laszlo do heroin at work. There are all these actions and there are no consequences. Speaking of heroin and no consequences, the whole heroin subplot. This is intertwined with Laszlo's black best friend, who I think is only named once in the whole movie, and I didn't catch it because I have a hard time understanding modern movies for some reason. I like can't understand anything that they say, especially with accents. I don't know anything about the AI accent controversy, so I'm not even going to speak with it. Accents normally bother me quite a bit in movies. The fact that that wasn't one of the things I was mad about says that I guess the AI worked, which is bad. I don't know. And that there were much more pressing things for me to be really pissed off about. The existence of this character's black friend is just very funny to me because narratively, he only exists to like prove that this guy isn't racist. I wasn't really worried that he was racist before. What's their bonding? He saved his place in the bread line like once. They're like best friends now and they do heroin now. I would have liked a couple more scenes in between, giving them a little bonding, letting me get to know their relationship more. Am I crazy? Am I crazy to want to know why my characters are involved together? What did they have in common? What did they talk about? Heroin? and not having a job, is that it? Then they do have a job. Then what do they talk about? Heroin and slacking off from their job. And then there's that scene kind of later in the movie where they are doing heroin on the Van Buren property. To me, I thought it was implied that his friend died, and I was like, oh, okay, that's bold. His black friend just existed to die and to show us that heroin is bad, or opium. That's what they're doing, opium, not heroin. That opium is bad, which I'm going to be honest is something I did already know, and I would have liked if they had used that time building up to a different conclusion than opium is bad, because again, I did know that one coming in. Except he didn't die, and he does show up later in a scene, which was confusing for me because I really did think that his friend kicked it. Also, his friend's son, I don't know why he exists, either to show that kids are affected by poverty too, or to like break the black single mother stereotype by making it a black single father. That kid's mom better be dead or doing something way worse than opium, because why the fuck is the kid with the dad? It's just a very perplexing situation overall. Still on the subject of heroin, or opium, I guess. I wrote it down as heroin in my notes, and that's what I thought it was for the whole movie until he gives it to his wife and calls it opium instead of heroin. Other than the Statue of Liberty opening shot, my favorite shot in this movie was when he was doing opium, and it's that shot through the musicians like strings and bow. I thought that was really beautiful. The distortion on that shot was a really great visual depiction of drugs and being high. I want stuff like that in my movie, and I thought that this movie was not only light on that, but as I've said several times, poorly directed. Long movie is not a deal breaker for me, but I have a recurrent issue with modern movies regarding their length. When I see a movie has a runtime of 2 hours and 20 minutes, that's a sweet spot for some fucking bullshit. There's like anywhere between 2 to 20 seconds on the beginning and or end of every shot that can be just totally edited off. All of the scenes can be cut down. Some of the scenes will be redundant and they won't really contribute anything new. I'm a writer, first and foremost. Sometimes you're looking at like a sentence or a paragraph and you're like, dang, this was really eloquent, it's really good, but it would just be a lot punchier and hit a lot harder and make the point a lot more effectively if it was a shortened version of the phrase. If it was a shortened version of the scene in movies. This movie was so long, and it definitely also did that, where all the scenes were just way too long, and then on top of that, all of the scenes are just nothing. The Brutalist is really a movie where I feel like less is more could have helped it, but I come out of a lot of modern movies thinking to myself, wow, in there was the bones of a really strong movie, but there was too much fat on the animal. There was too much fat in the film. This movie, I can't even say that it had that problem because it feels like it's all fat. It doesn't even feel like there is a skeleton under there of a story. The worst directed sequence for me was definitely the Italy sequence. I was not a fan of the use of narration over this fucking guy with the long hair. This should be like delivered directly to a character, and you should be able to deliver allegorical meaning through your dialogue because you're a writer. You shouldn't have to like use narration. Narration should only be used to tell the audience something that they don't already know, which a lot of the time is a glimpse into the character's inner world. This character means nothing to us. He's not important. And the narration doesn't really provide anything poetically, cinematically, narratively, character-wise. There's no purpose to it other than to be like pretentious and artsy, which is not a good enough motivation. I had a similar problem with Drive. In both movies, Drive and The Brutalist, there are just a lot of sequences of the characters just sort of staring and long extended establishing shots. Those long meaningful shots, each time you use it, it kind of loses its effectiveness. It's like the director has clearly watched a lot of films and has like identified certain cinematic techniques, but they haven't really understood when to deploy them or what they mean or when they're valuable and what sort of narrative foundation you have to lay in order for them to work. An actually great counterpoint to this is Challengers, which I only recently watched, and I was really surprised by how much I liked it. I wrote kind of an in-depth Letterboxd review if anybody wants to read that. Something that I really liked was the really dynamic direction. I almost felt like it was an answer to this question of how can you make the visual of tennis interesting consistently in new and dynamic ways that add to each successive tennis game that is shown in the film. And it really succeeded on that premise. Each shot was like more dynamic and more inventive and more compelling than the last one, and the ordering of them was really thought out and really well done. And that's something that this movie completely fails in. An example beyond the narration is when they enter this huge cave, and this shot is gorgeous. It took my breath away. I was like, damn, I gotta give it to them. This shot is beautiful. But then they go back to the cave, like after the rape scene, which I'll get to. Believe me, I'll get to that. They literally use like the same shot, like the same framing. I'm sure it was a different take, but it's the exact same shot. Why repeat that there? You've just lost that breathtaking emphasis. Either make a different shot that communicates something new, or don't use it the first time and save it for this really emotionally tense moment. I think that the whole point of making an experimental yet also narrative film is using those experiments to further the narrative. He started with a theme that he really wanted to make a thematically driven movie, and then he kind of worked backward from that, and he never thought that a movie is a visual narrative medium. You're telling a story fundamentally when you're making a movie. I've harped on the direction quite a bit, and something for me was that, this is a movie about design. The design in this movie was not compelling to me. It's bad. It's not to my tastes. With his cousin, unironically, some of the chairs in the window and like the modern furniture in this segment was some of my favorite designs in the whole movie, and I was excited to see how they would get better from there, which to me they really didn't. That was a big thing that really fell flat for me with this movie. None of the designs were really breathtaking, which really sucks for a movie that is all about design. For all this talk of Laszlo being this incredible designer, his stuff, it wasn't that good to me. I don't know. Like, yeah, okay, it was modern, it was avant-garde, but like, so was Marcel Duchamp Fountain. Are we hailing that as like the paragon of great design? Something that was in the back of my head for a lot of the film was Peggy Guggenheim's Art of this Century gallery and its design, and how that was really avant-garde and pushed like the edges of design, but was still really beautiful and really interesting. The director, I don't feel like knew who Peggy Guggenheim was. I think it's frankly ridiculous to make a movie about a European artist coming to America and being sponsored by a rich American to design and make art and not know who Peggy Guggenheim is. He hasn't even gone to smarthistory.com. Okay, that's what we're talking about. I was so underwhelmed by the library. I was kind of like, oh no. It was so like devoid of color and soulless. Somebody on the team didn't realize that the reason a lot of pictures of interior design are black and white is because they only had black and white cameras. It literally does feel like a ChatGPT generated like make me a Bauhaus library, and that's what it came up with, and it misunderstood that the pictures were in black and white. I don't know how to explain this. There's that throwaway line about the scream, and it just pissed me off. I'm gonna have to do some digging in my Google Drive, but I swear to God that I like read something in one of my classes about the scream being like exhibited in the US around a decade of when that scene is supposed to be happening. Is it providing something valuable? Like, oh my God, they're new money and they don't care about knowing artists. Are they making commentary that like, oh, modern art isn't accoladed well, which isn't even true, because the scream has been considered a masterpiece essentially since it was made, and it was collected by a museum in 1910. Or is the point of this to be that women are stupid? One of the things that really turned me off about this movie was that as somebody who is knowledgeable in not just art history, but specifically in modern art, it was abundantly clear to me that the director of this movie, the writer, the people who worked on it, the people who did the actual design, knew jack shit. They knew jack shit. The big magnum opus, this concrete church community center, whatever, it's very pretentious. To me, like, a great design is something that has beauty in its functionality and is designed to be used. And his design was not designed to be used. It was designed to be looked at. It was made as an art object. It's like a church that you can only worship in at these inconvenient times because of this lighting situation. A library where you can't browse the books and you can't see the books and you have to know what you're looking for, defeating the purpose, and also seems inelegant to open, in my opinion. That modernist library in Mexico City is like so beautiful and is so beloved and widely regarded. The hanging mechanisms are so gorgeous, and the use of space is very inventive. In The Brutalist, it just feels like creation of of space with no intention. None of the design in this movie feels motivated. That's my issue with the direction as well. None of the direction in this film feels motivated. Especially the direction in this concrete structure. The sequences were very bad. None of these shots wowed me the way that that opium music shot wowed me, the way that the opening shot wowed me. It really just felt all downhill from there, to be honest with you. It's just the ultimate pretentious movie. It takes itself so seriously to its own detriment. It's like insecure in its pretension. It's just ridiculous, and I was so unhappy by the end of the movie. The whole second part of the movie was absolutely abysmal. My boyfriend said that he wanted to walk out after the rape scene. He really didn't like it. When the rape scene happened, I was actually kind of like, oh, okay, you're cooking. Rape is not about sexual attraction and sexual desirability. It's about power, and it's an act by the male oppressor class onto the female oppressed class as an ultimate act of like class oppressive power. And obviously the classes here are economic and kind of racial, not sex classes. It's not that he's like secretly gay. That's not the point of this. It's that he is a man in power and he can just take advantage of people around him. And this is the ultimate act of taking advantage. But then the rest of the narrative proceeds to treat it like Van Buren is a closeted homosexual, which to me is just totally crazy. I hated the handling of this in the rest of the movie. I also think it's interesting in kind of a negative way that a picture as misogynistic as this would use rape, which is kind of an explicitly gendered, explicitly sexed act of violence, to convey the kind of humiliation and emasculation of Laszlo as the character. In retrospect, it's especially uninteresting given how they treat it in the rest of the movie, which is not very well. I hated the whole scene where his super ill wife comes over to confront the Van Buren family about their dad being gay or whatever. It's not about being gay. It's not about sexual desire. It's about power. It's almost allegorical. I almost feel like there should have been no repercussions about it in the narrative. You should have sucked it up and kept it inside. I think that would have been way more compelling on many, many, many different levels. That whole scene was just so effing redonkulous to me. I was like shaking my head in the theater. Like, what's that meme? Like shaking my head to let everybody know that I don't agree. That was me, especially because in the rest of the movie, Adrien Brody has cheated on her several times, including with a brothel prostitute. So he's like raped another woman. So what's the moral of this movie? That you can like rape women via the institution of sex work and prostitution, but male on male rape is unforgivable and being gay is unforgivable and you should die for that crime? Is that the thesis of this movie? I thought this was supposed to be about the American dream. The wife is like this ominous presence. She's like a specter haunting him. Speaking of specters haunting him, can you believe there was no talk about communism in this whole movie? Crazy. The specter haunting the first half of this movie is his wife. Then she comes and all she does is be sick and care about him, and then he like has sex with her even though she's sick. There was like this weird part where me and my boyfriend, we were like both shaking our heads and almost laughing, where she's like, I know I'm broken or whatever, but will you still want to have sex with me? And he was like, yes. I don't care that you'll just have to lay there now. That's so grim. She's like disabled and the only thing that has affected in the narrative is whether or not he can have sex with her. That's horrible. I hated the part where he got his wife hooked on opium. All she does in the movie is write him letters, be a passive participant in sexual intercourse with Adrien Brody, get addicted to opium by Adrien Brody, get screwed over by Adrien Brody, and then in one last act of devotion to this guy who's cheated on her multiple times and is a misogynist and doesn't give a rat's ass about her, she drags her frail, sickly body to yell at his rapist and then like dies off screen. Cool. It's so long. You get the sense that he's trying to build his magnum opus and it's all kind of building to that. But so much of it is just spent dicking around and doing nothing, and it ultimately builds to nothing, and it's just a stupid nothing burger where nothing happens and it's just pretentious and stupid and misogynistic and poorly directed, really poorly directed. There's no point to anything. It's a visual medium. The design has to speak for itself and the film has to speak for itself on its use of visual storytelling, which was not well deployed. Take, for example, that hideous, horrible scene where it's implied that his nonverbal niece is sexually assaulted by those two boys, and it's just left very ambiguous. There's no clues in the storytelling one way or the other, and I feel like the director's going, yeah, they won't be able to figure it out, and it's like, maybe I'm not Lynchian enough. I think that you should be able to figure things out. I like figuring things out. I'm an art historian after all. I like being able to appreciate how a visual piece of art communicates itself on the premise of that medium. I didn't ever write like a long letterbox review for this. I just wrote kind of a joke one, but I'm gonna say the joke one anyway because I feel like it's kind of apt. This movie was like a porn parody of 8.5. And I actually also didn't really like 8.5. Maybe seeing this movie made me like 8.5 more. Maybe it increased 8.5 on the artistic contribution scale. Fellini's an amazing director. The sequences are amazing and so full of delight and visual intrigue, and it's just all great. A lot of 8.5 is just like an ode to misogyny and the objectification of women, and I'm so over it. I hate that. I hate that shit. The meta commentary of it, it's certainly a lot stronger than the meta commentary of The Brutalist, and especially the fact that it's about filmmaking means that it's kind of accurate in a way that The Brutalist isn't, because nobody knew anything about architecture or design or avant-garde or modernism or anything. It's kind of furthered by the epilogue when the movie tries to tell us what it was about. But it was so shitty and so bad, and all of the designs that they showed were really bad, and I was shaking my head. I was like, this sucks. Like, all of these designs suck. This whole movie sucks. This has been a nothing burger. There was no good design. There was no good directing. There were like 2 good shots. None of the characters did anything. Nothing mattered. He never got caught that he was doing opium. It didn't matter that he's got his wife hooked on opium. It didn't matter that he got raped. It didn't matter that they went to Italy. Nothing mattered. Nothing ever mattered. It was just so silly. Design, bad. Directing, bad. Performances, bad. Plot, bad. Characters, bad. Everything, bad. Yeah, I don't know. The Brutalist was bad.